The cringiest category of competitions is undoubtedly the who do blank people like better competitions. In most cases, the judges never meet the real guys. Spenny usually puts on his best face like he's going to a job interview, and Kenny almost always does something deceptive. What it boils down to is that the like better competitions are basically friend tryouts for different demographics. Each guy tries to articulate or demonstrate why he is the better friend. The judges pick, and the loser does a humiliation. So let's get right into the cringe. We start off with a lesson in political correctness. Which is the proper word to use?
Who do handicapped people like more?
Disabled people.
Who do disabled people like more?
Well, what's the difference? Handicapped is defined as a person with an impairment who cannot fulfill a normal life role. Being disabled is defined as having a restriction to ability to perform an activity in a manner considered normal. So in a nutshell, the word handicap refers to a class of people who are not able to live, quote, normally, and disabled refers to the condition that a person has. So here we have Spenny educating the audience about disabled notables. Let's have a quick look at these people. Stephen Hawking suffered from amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or ALS. Dr. Hawking was a brilliant physicist who claimed his success was in part due to brilliant physicists before him like Albert Einstein. Bethany Hamilton is a professional surfer who, at the age of 13, had her arm bitten off by a f***ing shark. There's a biopic about her on Canadian Netflix called Soul Surfer. Ludwig van Beethoven is a famous composer born with the ability to hear, but gradually went almost but not quite completely deaf by his mid-40s. Marlee Matlin is an actress who has a hearing impairment. She's known for a few different projects, but most of my subscribers will probably know her as Stella from Family Guy.
Nice to meet you.
Helen Keller is arguably the most impressive person on the list. After going blind and deaf before the age of 2, Helen learned to read, write, and speak with the help of her lifelong companion and teacher, Anne Sullivan. Her ability to speak was a bit irregular, to say the least.
It is not blindness or deafness that brings me my death. Others.
So Kenny's dog joke is basically spot on.
Do you know what Helen Keller called her dog?
What?
Stevie Wonder was placed in an incubator after birth and went blind as a result of the concentration of oxygen being too high in the device. He has won 25 Grammy Awards so far in his lifetime. David Paterson, the former governor of New York State, was the first blind person to be sworn in as governor of any state in the United States. And finally, Christopher Reeve played Superman in the late 70s and early 80s. In 1995, he fell off of his horse and broke his neck, causing complete paralysis. As for the judges, Brian McLean has visual and hearing impairments. He was born with a hearing impairment but developed retinitis pigmentosa when he was 16 years old. He founded Achilles Canada in June 1999. As a runner himself, he saw the need for a club that could provide health and fitness opportunities to athletes with disabilities, as well as training and social events. Brian will turn 60 this year, and as of today, his vision has gotten worse, but he continues to run because it relaxes him and it makes him feel at ease. Catherine McKinnon is a Prince Edward Islander who was born with a hearing impairment. She's worked as a sign language consultant on many projects for TV, including Fargo and Titans. She's worked as an actress on several programs, including Murdoch Mysteries, and she won ACTRA's National Woman of the Year Award in 2016. Jeff May has thrombocytopenia absent radius syndrome, or TAR syndrome. Thrombocytopenia is a deficiency of platelets in the blood, causing a number of things including slow blood clotting after an injury. Absent radius because the radial bones are missing in both forearms, and the ulna bones may be underdeveloped or absent in one or both arms. There are other possible skeletal abnormalities affecting the upper arms, legs, or hips, meaning people with TAR syndrome may or may not have their upper arms. That's the disability Jeff has, but who is Jeff? Jeff is a wheelchair racer. He graduated from the University of Windsor in 2001. He's a former head coach for the Windsor Bulldogs track and field program. In 2007, he founded the Boiling Point Wheelchair Track Classic, an international track meet for athletes with disabilities, which ran until 2013. As of today, he works as a voice actor.
Thank you for calling San Fernando Medical Group. If this is a medical emergency, please hang up the phone and dial 911 or go to your nearest emergency room now.
Let's just slowly examine Jeff's introduction to Kenny. If you watch Jeff's face when Kenny comes downstairs, he pays particular attention to Kenny's shirt. You can see him look at Kenny, and then follow the shirt. After Kenny greets the other judges, Jeff looks at the shirt, and then at Kenny, and then at the shirt again. 23 seconds later, he's still looking at the shirt and then up at Kenny. I can almost see him fighting back a smile as he puts the pieces together and figures out Kenny's plan, but he says nothing. Jeff could have easily taken one look at the shirt and said, "Hey, why does your shirt say Vote Spenny with a picture of you? You're not Spenny." Even when Kenny signs the fake autograph, Jeff has the opportunity to talk, but he just says,
Sweet, thanks, man.
Jeff could have ruined Kenny's whole scheme right there. After all, Kenny's plan depended on having a panel of judges who hadn't seen the show before. And to elaborate on that point, some people say that Jeff shouldn't have participated as a judge for that exact reason, because he was already biased in his judgment. I would be inclined to agree with you, but I also get it from Jeff's perspective. His options for leisure activities are somewhat limited, so if someone offered him the opportunity to participate on a TV show that he's quite a fan of,
I'm quite a fan of the show, and
he's not going to turn that down. Case in point, the drums. How many of us have the opportunity to go full Neil Peart on a drum set? For us non-drum kit owners, it's likely almost never. Much like Jeff took advantage of the opportunity for a drum solo, he had the opportunity to participate on the show, and he took it. I really can't fault him for that because I get it. Now, I asked Jeff for an interview, but he respectfully declined. I also asked him if he had Kenny's fake autograph. There are thousands of Kenny Hot's autographs floating around, but there are only 3 name-swapped posters with a forged Spenny autograph. Catherine and Brian each got one that looked like this, and only Jeff's looks like this. Jeff said he's not sure if he still has it. I also asked Brian and Catherine about their autographed photos. Brian says he doesn't remember receiving one, and I did not receive a response from Catherine. For the record, Catherine says Kathy, with a K instead of a C. You rock. So let's examine Spenny's day with the judges in an order of increasing cringiness. Spenny claims to have a personal relationship with the mayor, who at the time would have been David Miller.
And I happen to know and have a personal relationship with the mayor.
How does Spenny have a personal relationship with David Miller? I don't know. David didn't even live in Canada until he was 9 years old, and he didn't live in Toronto until he was 23. Spenny and David didn't grow up together, and they didn't go to the same schools. So I have no idea what he means by personal relationship. Which leads us right into a new segment called Questions for Kenny and Spenny. I've seen plenty of KVS media where the guys are having an upcoming live stream or a meet and greet, and the fans are asked to come up with new and original questions for the guys. They're tired of being asked the same old stuff. What's your favorite competition? What's your favorite humiliation? What's your relationship like today? They're sick of those type of questions. So whenever I have a new and original question, it's going here. How did Spenny have a personal relationship with David Miller? Maybe one day the guys will answer my questions. Anyway, there's been plenty of discourse about how Kenny gets help from everybody. For example, the crew, his family, Dr. Goldfield, but there isn't much talk about these girls in production. They're responsible for the majority of props, locations, and research on the show, but they do it from behind the scenes without any recognition besides the end credits. When referring to how the girls help Kenny, most fans quote 3 scenes. Ordering high-tech weights for Kenny, but not Spenny, not making a reservation at the club for Spenny, and this one where an appointment with the mayor is never booked. How do I know production was responsible for booking the appointment with the mayor? Well, I can't prove it, but I have reasonably deduced it. Spenny indicated that he thought an appointment was being made.
I thought there was an appointment being made.
Meaning someone else was supposed to make it. Okay, but how do I know that the girls were the ones who were supposed to make it? Let's look at some of the things they've done in the past. They supply Kenny's weights for obese and some disguises for pissed off. According to Sebby, they sourced the Leathermen for naked.
But then, we had these amazing women in our production office that were like looking at the Back and Now magazine, finding a real Leatherman, calling him up and saying, hey, do you want to make $150 for an hour?
And most importantly, they arranged for Kenny to get beat up by the girls in Piss Off.
Probably there's something that the girls in production wanted me to do or something.
Just seen you get beat up by...
Yeah.
Production makes arrangements and appointments for shooting these bits. So I believe they would have been the party responsible for arranging Spenny's appointment with the mayor. And by the way, I'm going to be talking about the production girls a lot more often because they've played a hand in many of Kenny's schemes in ways that you wouldn't possibly imagine. Now, remember in the laugh analysis when I talked about checking the thanks to section of the end credits? I recognize everyone on this list except for Howard Moscow. So I did a little bit of research and I found out that Howard Moscow was a member of David Miller's executive committee. In 2007, Howard Moscow called for an overhaul of Ontario's disabled parking system. So he had a connection to accessibility and disabled people within Ontario. I always thought it was weird that when Spenny gets to the pool, he makes these comments.
We just need to now do something that's got nothing to do with politics.
Going to the mayor's office was a very political event.
Well, according to what we saw, there was nothing political that took place. The mayor was gone, so why would he say that? I think Mr. Moscow is listed in the credits for the same reason Spenny makes those comments. Because Spenny and the judges just had a conversation with Howard Moscow about accessibility within the city in lieu of the mayor's absence. Just a little theory that I had. The next event on Spenny's roster is swimming at the Grand Hotel. What exactly is more cringe about this over the mayor's office scene? It's what you're not seeing. In an outtake, Jeff pretends to have drowned and Spenny jumps into the pool to save him.
You shouldn't play jokes like that.
Then, out of frustration, Spenny launches the ball at Brian, the gentleman with a visual impairment. Obviously, the most cringe scene is the party. It looks like the leftovers of someone else's party. Brian and Jeff just kind of go with it like good sports, and Catherine is the only one who is genuinely enjoying herself. The judges spend the next day with Kenny, who takes them to 4 different activities, each designed to exclude one or more of the judges. Again, arranged from least cringe to most cringe. Go-karts. Universal exclusion here. Brian can't see to drive. Jeff can't steer. And at first I couldn't think of a good reason why Catherine can't participate. I'm guessing it must have something to do with not being able to hear safety announcements, but even for non-deaf people, like the carts are loud and the drivers wear helmets which obstruct their ears, so I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you. The only reason it's least cringe is because once Kenny started driving, he couldn't interact with the judges anymore. And it's nice to see somebody take a shot at Kenny.
You're not very good.
The art gallery, exclusion of the visually impaired. There's a bit of condescension going on with the Paris talk, but overall it's not too bad. It's rude, but it's not bad considering Kenny's plan. Dodgeball. Here, line up against this wall and let me launch a f***ing ball at you. Exclusion of the visually impaired and the physically disabled. Brian can't see it coming, and Jeff can't move out of the way quick enough. Kenny could have thrown the ball and hit their legs, but he needs them to hate him, so he shows no mercy, hitting Jeff in the shoulder, and then he gets Brian in the same shoulder area. Catherine was the only one who stood a chance, and even then, that chance was short-lived.
Party squad! Party squad!
Finally, the worst one, Party Squad. Kenny treats them all terribly with crass and demeaning comments. He calls out Jeff for showboating.
Simmer it down, dude.
He kicks Brian out of rehearsal and degrades Catherine's voice and denies her water.
You get water if you do it right.
Eventually, he storms off. So who really won this competition? Kenny's plan has 2 parts, and each one needs to be successful if he's going to win. Part 1, demean the judges to make them want to pick the person from the first day, which is the easy part of the plan. Part 2, make the judges think that the person from the first day is actually named Kenny. The term gaslighting gets thrown around a lot in the wrong context these days, but this is real gaslighting. Kenny tries to make the judges question and doubt their own memory about the name of the guy on the first day. It would be reasonable to assume that at some point during his day with the judges, Spenny introduced himself as Spenny. So to break that memory, Kenny spends the next day talking about Kenny this and Kenny that, as if the guy on the first day was named Kenny. The overall plan is logical, but I'm not exactly sure how effective Part 2 was. I feel as though I should bring into question Sebby's possible interference with the judges' decisions by explicitly misdirecting them as to which guy was Kenny and which guy was Spenny. Well, what the hell am I talking about? Jeff doesn't have a perception disability and obviously knew what was up. But what about Catherine and Brian? Could Catherine and Brian clearly hear Kenny planting the Kenny name at specific points? How well could they be absorbing that information? Or is the suffix any more memorable than each individual name? Could Brian see Kenny's shirt well enough to discern that the person in front of him is named Spenny? At one point, Brian does refer to Kenny as Spenny.
Spenny here, he doesn't care, almost.
But that's the only point in the episode where we get an idea that the second part of the plan may be working. So where's the part about Sebby interfering? Kenny's plan relies on gaslighting the judges into doubting their recollection of the name of the guy on the first day. Well, who's to say his plan didn't work so well that they became completely disoriented and couldn't remember anybody's name? Who's to say that the gaslighting didn't backfire and now they doubt all of their memories of the proper nouns Kenny and Spenny? The reason I'm scrutinizing the point of names so much is because when the judges reach their decision point, they refer to the guys as days. Yesterday and today.
The person we were with yesterday was great. Sweet, nice, kind, tried his best. We need more people like him.
Today I felt like I was being a little degraded with my disability.
Today I felt really left out. You just excluded us out.
Watching them speak their piece kind of spawns a theory in my mind. It makes me feel as though the judges either didn't retain or didn't trust their memories of each guy's name. And after speaking about the experience they had each day, they asked Sebby, who was who again? And Sebby would have explicitly stated, Kenny was the guy yesterday and Spenny was the guy today, leading to their decisions.
Kenny.
Well, why is that a problem? What's the difference between Kenny saying, I'm Spenny, and Sebby saying, Kenny was the guy yesterday? Because from what I saw, Kenny only ever played his expert semantics games to dilute the judges' memories.
An autographed picture of Kenny and I. Kenny. You know who Kenny is now. You spent your day with him yesterday. Just remember.
At no point did Kenny ever say, I'm Spenny. He signed a poster Spenny, he wore a shirt that said Vote Spenny, and all day he kept saying Kenny this and Kenny that, but at no point did he explicitly say, I am Spenny. He just laid the groundwork for the judges to passively associate the guy from the first day with the name Kenny. That strategy is different because it allows judges to arrive at their own conclusion, whereas if Sebby interfered, he would have just explicitly stated a falsehood. The guy yesterday was Kenny. The guy today was Spenny. I can't prove this, obviously, it's just another theory, but I don't think it's unlikely either. A contingency plan. If part number 2 of Kenny's plans didn't work, if the judges couldn't remember either guy's name, Sebby was right there to say, oh, the guy yesterday. Yeah, that was Kenny. Whether Kenny's plan worked or whether Sebby interfered is actually irrelevant. Catherine and Brian clearly enjoyed their day with Spenny and they were tricked into calling him Kenny. Obviously, Spenny won the competition. Come on now. And I feel as though Jeff's statement reinforces my argument.
I'm voting for the Kenny, like the real Kenny.
Jeff makes it clear that he's voting for the real Kenny because he understands that a vote for Kenny really means a vote for Spenny. Who do disabled people like more? Spenny. As for the rating, this episode barely gets 1.5 bobbies. 1/2 bobby for the scheme of switching names. While effective, it's kind of lame, and treating anyone as a subhuman for personal gain is just awful. But he still had something going, so 1/2 bobby. Another 1/2 bobby for secondary character involvement. I wouldn't normally label judges as secondary or tertiary characters unless they were crew, but Jeff's twist confessional at the end was probably the best part of the episode. Now, I had an interesting comment on the laugh analysis, which has since been deleted. They suggested that the Spenny's reactions category should be changed to reactions. This was to encompass Kenny as well because his reactions are also quite entertaining. So in light of that, one generous 1/2 bobby for reactions. I think it's amusing watching Spenny hype himself up after hearing that the decision was unanimous, while Kenny smirks in the background, then being absolutely devastated after hearing that he lost. Kenny also has a stunned reaction, but for a wholly opposite reason. He can't believe that his plan worked. What's also interesting about Spenny's reaction is its similarity to the old people competition. Spenny can't believe that his favorite judge changed her vote.
Catherine voted for him?
Unanimous? Jesse didn't vote for me? What happened to Jesse?
She voted for me.
No bobbies for interactions, just because what little time the guys actually spent together is barely remarkable. And finally, no bobbies for rewatchability. Once you see it, you don't need to see it again. At least for a while, right? In conclusion, we have some good foreshadowing and some good irony on this one. With regard to foreshadowing, Spenny says he's bad at remembering names, and of course the episode ends with the judges not being able to remember his name. As for the irony, Spenny asks the judges to wear name tags, but he doesn't wear one himself because he assumes they'll remember his name. Had Spenny worn a name tag, the judges might have been more confident with their memories, and Kenny's plan to gaslight probably would have fallen apart immediately. So now let's hit the randomizer for a look at the next video. Okay, 51 is Stain. Okay, I know exactly what I'm going to do. It's going to be a good one. So let me know in the comments, do you agree with me that Spenny is actually the winner here? Or was the identity switch fair play? As always, thanks for watching, like and subscribe to help the channel, and I'll see you on the next one.